for further ado, I would like to welcome Jackie to introduce our assessor. So, yep. Jackie, you want to go ahead and unmute?
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Los Angeles County Assessors Jeff Prang was elected in 2014 as the 27th assessors for the County of Los Angeles and re-elected in 2018. Raised in Warren, Michigan, Assessor Prang is a graduate of Michigan State University. After graduation, Mr. Prang relocated to California, where he served nearly 18 years as a council member for the city of West Hollywood, including 4 terms as mayor, among many other positions in the public sector. Upon taking office in 2014 as the Los Angeles County Assessor, Mr. Prang implemented sweeping reforms to ensure that the strictest ethical guidelines rooted in fairness, accuracy, and integrity would be adhered to in his office. Mr. Prang is the State Board of Equalization License Appraiser, lives in Baldwin Hills with his husband, Ray, and is a frequent guest lecturer at the local colleges and universities. Please welcome Assessor Jeff Prang.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Am I good on sound? Okay, good deal.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you very much, Cindy and Hinoko. It's great to be with you again. Glad we have some time to talk about some substantive things. The last time we were together, we were just having dinner and enjoying the installation of officers. So I know that a lot of you are associated with other organizations and brokerages that have probably heard me speak before. So I will trust that everybody here today knows that I'm not the guy who collects taxes. That's the tax collector. Our office is responsible for appraisal and valuation of property, but we don't set rates and we don't get involved in collections. Again, for those who are unfamiliar with the assessor, I am one of 3 countywide elected officials, the other 2 being the sheriff and the district attorney. My department has about 1,300 employees. We're located in 6 different offices throughout the county. And as your assessor, I'm responsible for establishing the value for all taxable property of the county, which includes real property, which is land and buildings, as well as what's known as business personal property, which includes furniture, equipment, and machinery. I oversee the largest local assessment agency in the United States, and we're responsible for valuing over 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments annually. So now that I've covered the basics of our office, I wanted to talk about a little bit about our current assessment year and the progress that we've made. We work on a fiscal year, July 1st till June 30th. So we're working to close our 2021-2022 assessment roll in June. But I want to provide you some statistics, including median sales price, as well as some other market-based resources from the existing roll year that you might find useful. So the primary job, as you probably know, of the assessor is the production of the annual assessment roll, which is essentially just the inventory of all taxable property in the county. And the assessment roll serves a number of important functions. It's an important planning document for local governments as they prepare their budgets in anticipation of property tax revenue. It also serves as an important economic indicator, giving some insight as to the health of the real estate market. And every year, the assessments for all properties are combined and published in the annual assessment roll, which, as I stated earlier, is something that also serves as an important indicator as to the health of the real estate market. The assessments for all, I'm sorry, lost my train of thought here. So the 2020-21 assessment roll represents the 11th consecutive year of countywide growth. Property values grew by $62.9 billion, which is about a 3.7% increase for the county over the previous year. And the total assessed value for all property in the county in 2021 was more than $1.7 trillion, or over $17 billion in property tax revenue, which is allocated to local governments, cities, school districts, and county services. Revenues from the assessment roll pay for vital public services, which include public education, roads, hospitals, libraries, the basic services that we all depend on. I want to give you a little bit of information about some of the local market, and I've included a table here that displays property value growths for a select number of cities throughout the county. You can see we highlight Calabasas, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, the city of LA, and then the county of LA as a whole. LA County, as I said, grew at about 3.7%. As you can see, the rest of them grew in similar percentages. I know it's no news to you that the residential housing market in LA experienced 2 years of record highs. Housing prices increased so much that $1 million homes have become the norm in a number of areas, while other areas of the county has witnessed an all-time high in terms of the number of transactions. I've included a chart highlighting the updated growth we've witnessed from Calabasas and the West San Fernando Valley, Beverly Hills. And as you can see, the median sales price of a single-family home in all the cities and LA City neighborhoods exceeded $1 million. And according to our data, we anticipate that those prices will remain high, but it looks like the extremely steep year-over-year increases may have begin to slow down. I understand that the market can change quickly, so if you ever need updated figures, you can always reach out to us and we'll give you some more numbers. Here's a chart with all the median sales prices for a number of communities throughout the county. I always like to talk about about tax savings programs that are available for property owners. The one I always like to emphasize over and over again is the Homeowners Exemption. As you may know, this is one of the programs that we manage that helps people save money on their property taxes. We manage other programs for seniors, veterans, people living with disabilities, etc. Last year, we helped folks save over $650 million in property taxes. The Homeowners Exemption, however, will reduce your property assessment by $7,000. It'll reduce your taxes by about $70 annually. The only qualifications are that you have to own your home and occupy it as of January 1st. We estimate that in the cities of Calabasas, West Hollywood, and Beverly Hills, over 5,300 eligible homeowners do not claim it, primarily because they don't know about it. It requires only a one-time application fee, and it will renew every year until there's a change in ownership. I wanted to, if you have questions about the Homeowners Exemption and whether or not you have it or not, I want to talk a little bit about how to make that determination. So there are a couple ways to check to see if you have it. One is from your property tax bill. I've included an example of what your tax bill looks like. And I want to point out the less exemption section of the bill near the green circle. If a homeowner has applied for the exemption, the bill would read home after the word less exemption, along with the corresponding exemption amount. You can also check your homeowner's exemption status via our property tax portal online. I've included two graphics showing a search result of a property. On the right side of the screen is the exemption portion, which will show if any exemption is claimed. If a property has filed for and received the homeowner's exemption, the word homeowners will show up on the exemption line. Otherwise, it'll be blank, meaning you need to apply. Before moving on, I wanted to take a minute to talk a little bit about, give you a brief overview of your property tax bill. Although I do want to emphasize that my office has nothing to do with the property tax bill. It is the responsibility of the treasurer and tax collector. I'm not involved. Everybody thinks I'm involved, which is why I'm going to spend a minute talking about it. But simply put, the bill that includes your property tax figure is actually a multi-agency bill. It's not only a property tax, but includes a number of other fees and assessments that have nothing to do with your property tax. Our office is responsible for the general tax levy section only. That's the 1% home value as determined by Prop 13. The rest of the bill has a whole bunch of other items and fees. Those are placed there by other government agencies and by cities. They include voter-approved bonds and other voted indebtedness for things such as infrastructure projects. I've got an example here for a bill in Calabasas, and you can see the green one highlights the 1% general tax levy I mentioned earlier. The red two highlights voter-approved taxes levied against the property, and the red three highlights direct assessments. Direct assessments and these additional charges are on your property tax bill, but they are not property taxes. They're not based on the assessor's valuation. Examples of direct assessments may be for sewer maintenance, water, fire districts, and the like. And as you can see on this example of the bill, a number of direct assessments are included for Calabasas residents. We'll pass along a copy of this graphic and some brief points describing sections 1 and 3 highlighted on the bill. Moving on, I did want to talk briefly about Proposition 19. We're getting a lot of questions and concerns. It was the subject of a news article in today's Los Angeles Times. You recall Prop 19 was sponsored by the California Association of Realtors. It did two things. It allowed seniors to transfer their property tax base with them when they move. It also affected family inheritance. Talking about the first one, and you may have heard me discuss this before, the first component of Prop 19 allows a homeowner who's over 55, severely disabled, or the victim of a natural disaster to transfer their tax base with them when they sell their home and buy a new one. This component also expands the previous benefits and now allows homeowners to buy a home anywhere in the state, to transfer their tax base up to 3 times, and to transfer the tax base to a home of any value. A second component refers to the transfer of property between family members, specifically between parents and children and grandparents and grandchildren. In order for this to occur, a couple things need to happen. One, the only property that your children can inherit from you along with your tax base is your primary residence. Unlike the previous law, no other property now qualifies. Secondly, your child must make that home their primary residence within 1 year of inheriting it and file the homeowners exemption. Prop 19 also limits the value of the primary residence that your children or grandchildren can inherit, more or less limiting it to about the first $1 million. Any value over $1 million will be assessed at the market rate. We've got a number of resources and a lot of information on a special page we've set up on our website for Prop 19. The last topic I wanted to address deals with the construction of accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs. And with the passage last year of Senate Bill 9, there's a lot more homeowners who are either building accessory dwelling units or considering them to develop on their property if they have the space. It's important to remember that whenever there's new construction, and if you're going to be splitting a lot, if you're going to be converting a single family property into a duplex, triplex, or fourplex, you're going to be adding kitchens and bathrooms, potentially adding more square footage. That sort of construction is assessable. The other thing to keep in mind is that if you split your lot to build 2 units, the direct assessments, all those school, sewage, stormwater charges, will now be allocated to both lots. So there will be other tax implications. To help unravel some of the confusion around this, my office, along with the LA County Department of Public Works and the LA County Department of Regional Planning, are hosting a virtual ADU resource seminar on March 23rd at 12 o'clock. You'll have an opportunity to learn how to correctly navigate the permitting and construction system. You can visit my website to register, and my staff will send you the registration materials as soon as they're available. Finally, I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to highlight our new and improved website along with some of its content. As I've mentioned this before, but our website contains a redesigned real estate professional toolkit designed specifically for your industry. That includes a lot of information to assist you with your professional development, info that you can share with your clients and prospective clients. And I really urge you to bookmark this page and sign up for our quarterly Realtor newsletter, which we try to keep you informed with helpful tips for anybody who owns property in the county. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm happy to answer any questions. And Cindy, I'm grateful for all of your efforts to help introduce me to the various organizations that you're associated with in real estate in LA County. I did put my contact information in the chat. If you have questions that come up after we're done, you're always welcome to reach out to me.
Great. Thank you so much, Assessor Prang. You've been such a great friend and such an inspiration. I see you everywhere, and you definitely do get out to LA County and get the word across. And I don't know if any other assessor, I don't know if I know them, but you know, not to offend anyone, but you're definitely one of the most active assessor in just making sure that information gets out, and you are so transforming to your department by making everything online. I mean, now if you need anything, you just go online, and I think that makes such a world of difference, especially if you're looking up records for, you know, for properties. And so before I ask Mary to come up and do Q&A, I just want to also, if we have a few minutes, I'd like to ask Termagon, which is Ariel, to kind of share with us, just kind of briefly, and say hi. He's also one of our partners, that founding partners from the very beginning where our network started, to actually join us as well. So Ariel, I don't know if you have your the PowerPoint or the video that you wanted to show. You wanted to show that you can. And also you're muted. Did you want to just take a few minutes to say hi? And of course with properties, right? A lot of times in regards to property value, sometimes issues such as termite and so forth do come in, does affect the property value if it gets damaged. So yes, please tell us a little bit about what you do, Ariel, with Termagon.
Hello, this is Ariel de Guzman. I'm the termite inspector. Just in case you need my service, just let us know. Cindy will give you the phone number. And anytime, just give us a call ahead of time for any appointment. Okay.
Great. And Ariel, if you want to put in your name, phone number, and email, contact information in the chat, I'm sure those that's needing that service will put in the chat.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thanks so much for being with us. And after the Q&A, before we go to networking, we will try to get your video up too. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So now I'd like to turn to Mary Perdomo, which is our program chair, to host our Q&A session. So if you do have any questions for our assessor, he's graciously, you know, allocated time to answer your Q&A. Please do so. So you have two ways. You can either raise your virtual hand, or you can put the question in the chat. Mary will call your name, and also call your name to come up and ask the question, or you can just let her know that you want her to ask the question for you. Thank you. And I do see a hand up, Mary. So I'll turn it to you, Mary.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Assessor, for your time and the information that you have brought us. I did see about 3 questions on the chat, and I don't know if they want to come up and ask the question. We'll give you the opportunity to unmute and ask the question directly. I saw a question coming from Beverly Taki. Beverly, did you want to come out and ask your question?
No, please, Mary, ask it for me. Thank you.
Okay, so she was just asking, where do we find this 2021 assessment roll, and what is the website? I think
website is assessor.lacounty.gov, and one of my staff will tell us which tab it's under.
Okay, and I see Aldo Vacias, he's given us a lot of great information here.
Yeah, so I included the link to the assessor's annual report in the chat. So that one's included there. You can just click on it. It'll take you directly to the report.
Okay, great. And then the next question comes from Samantha Allen. Samantha, did you want to unmute and ask your question directly?
Sure. Hi. Hi, Mr. Prang. So I have a question. If everyone applies for if everyone qualifies for the homeowner exemption, why is there like an application? Why is there a process?
Because we require you to first thing, it's not a rule that I apply. This is in the Revenue and Taxation Code, and they want you to fill out an application and sign it under penalty of perjury, because you are attesting that is where you live. So we need, if we just applied it, we don't have a way of determining the difference between a homeowner and a renter, and renters do not qualify for the homeowners exemption.
Right, and I guess a landlord, it wouldn't apply. They're paying the tax.
That's correct. It has to be where you live.
Okay.
And this is even more important, just as an aside, this is more important now than ever, because in order to take advantage of Proposition 19, you need to file the homeowners exemption this keeps us from becoming some type of enforcement agency. This is a legal document that where you testify to perjury that is where you live, indicating that you qualify for those benefits.
Great. And do you only apply one time or every year?
Just one time. The only times you need to change is if there's a change in ownership, if you add somebody or delete somebody from the deed, or if you move or somebody else moves in. But otherwise, you're good once you've signed up.
Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Samantha, for your question. And then I see Gloria Carmona. Do you want to come up and ask your question?
I think in listening, it probably just got answered because she said that everybody qualifies for it. We just have to apply.
So you have to live in the home as of January 1st.
Correct.
It has to be your home. It can't be a rental.
Yes.
You've got to be the owner. And those are the only two conditions. So they would apply. And I always like, one of the reasons I like to talk about this issue with realtors is because I know a lot of you do a lot of, you do email, you do direct mail marketing, you're trying to give helpful pieces of information to property owners. And I think anytime you tell somebody they can save some money, I think that is a feather in your cap, and we want to. I actually have an ulterior motive because we want to promote this, but I don't have the resources. So I'm trying to steal a little bit of space on your email to help us do this community service for people.
So once the person lives in the property as of January 1st, owns the property as of January 1st, and is the primary residence, and they apply, I saw some numbers briefly. You said something about 7,000 what? Like, so what is the exception?
It reduces your total assessed value by $7,000. So if you had $1 million home, we will now assess it at $993,000. So it's not a monster size savings, but it is a savings that's available to everybody. I imagine in particular, if you're unemployed or on a fixed income, it'd probably be more important. Unfortunately, it's a low number, but the legislature has not changed that number since the early 1970s.
Okay. Thank you.
Surely.
Thank you, Gloria. And then we have a question from Richard Wilder. Richard, do you want to come up? It's Richard here.
I don't think he has his camera on. Just go ahead.
Okay.
Oh.
Is he there? Okay.
Can I ask a question? Hello?
Sure.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I have a question about inheritance tax. Inheritance, as you mentioned, first of all, I want to thank you for your information. The inheritance tax, you said either the child can live in a residence after the parent passed away, or the grandfather or whatever. Now, what about if the child already was living in that property, and how long does he need to live in that property in order for he be able to, be able to either sell, or is there a time limit for? The second question is a time limit for the children to be able, to be able to sell if they want to.
So thank you for that question. So the rule says that if you are going to inherit the property from your parents, you have to occupy that home within 12 months after their death. If you're already living there, then you're fine. All you need to do is reapply in your name for the homeowners exemption. There is no limit on how long you can live in the property before you sell it. However, if you don't occupy the property, it'll be reassessed to market value. So if you decide you're going to use it as a rental, you can keep it, but we are now going to reassess it, and your taxes will go up.
Thank you.
Was there a question, Mary, from Richard, before we get to Renee?
I'm sorry, who has a question? I missed that.
Richard, you mentioned that Richard has a question. I think, do you mind asking?
On the chat it says, can we expect a new proposition shortly to address the shortcomings on Prop 90?
Prop 90.
Yeah, that's what it says here, Prop 90,
Um,
or maybe
They
19.
probably meant 19.
so Prop 19. So there is a ballot measure which is being circulated as we speak. The Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is circulating a petition to repeal that portion of Prop 19 dealing with family inheritance. They want to restore the former law, which was known as Prop 58, which provided more generous benefits to children and grandchildren inheriting property.
Great,
If it qualifies, it'll be on the ballot in November.
Okay, great. And then Renee, you're up.
Thank you. Thanks, Accessory Prang. Thank you for being here. Actually, I worked at the Baldwin Theater many, many moons ago. So Kirk, definitely know the community where you live, and congratulations for living there. It's beautiful. I want to thank you for the Realtors Toolbox. Can I ask how often is that updated? It looks like there's some great information here about assessments and things that we can lift these up. We can put them in our newsletters. We can share them with our clients. Is that the purpose for our toolbox here?
That is the purpose. So we want you, so there is information in there that may help you to better advise your clients, things dealing with wills and trusts, but there's a lot of information in there that we want you to clip and paste it and share it with your clients. Property tax, property assessment administration is very complicated. A lot of people don't know a lot about it. We know that realtors have more than a passing interest in knowing and understanding this, so you can provide better value to your clients. So we're trying to put as much information and keep the information on that site fresh, so that you constantly have some, you can see that as a source of education and information that you can learn from yourself and share with your clients.
Fantastic, thank you. And honestly, I thought the home exemption was only for seniors 55 and over, but apparently I was very wrong.
You're wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see a question from Alice Young. She says, how long does it take to process the application?
The short answer is too long. However, it is, we're in the process of upgrading our technology, and it's a multi-year $100 million project. One of the things we will be able to do probably in the next 12 to 18 months is take a lot of these applications 100% online. Unfortunately, with the homeowners exemption, you do need to print out that form and you need to mail it to us. It's still a paper-based operation, so it may take 6 to 8 months before your homeowner's application is actually processed. But keep in mind that it's always applied to the date that you submit it, not to the processing date. So if there's any corrections that need to be made, they'll be made in your favor to the point when you've submitted it.
Great, thank you very much. And we have a question from Mary Chu. Mary, did you want to come up and ask the question directly to the assessor?
Sure. My question is, like when my client has the bank pays the real estate tax instead of them mail the check directly to the county. My question is, how long does it take? Because especially if you're in escrow right now, I know the second half is due February 1st, and the bank say they paid it. Of course, it doesn't show up on the record because escrow goes by the record, whether tax is paid or not. Escrow will withhold the tax. So I'm just curious, we have not closed, we're waiting to close escrow soon. How long does it actually, the timeline, the time gap?
So I don't know that question. That is actually a question for the tax collector's office. They're the ones to deal with taxes.
Okay.
But let me just take a chance. Robert Izazaki works closely with the tax collector's office. Robert, do you have any insight as to that one?
No, you're correct. That is a tax collector function, and they would be able to provide further information on that. One thing I would like to point out, though, is that, of course, supplemental property taxes, which are issued as a result of a sale, oftentimes, those are mailed directly to the new property owner. They're not paid through an impound account. So sometimes new property owners think that those bills are going to be taken care of by their lender as well. Generally, that's not the case. So just something to keep in mind.
Good, thanks.
Great. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Can I ask?
Final question.
Okay.
Do you need to reapply every year for the exemption, or once you apply, as long as you don't sell, you're qualified?
Homeowners exemption, just one time.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Jeff, yeah, the question is, and one of the things that you wrote was written is that if you're going to move to a light property, like a residential, to move to residential. Now, the guys 30 years ago pays very little, and now the price is higher to go and move into different property. Now, the question is how that works as far as, does it have to be the same amount as far as that goes, or can it be what the market value is today? And right, that's
So let me just make sure I understand the question. Let's say you bought, for sake of argument, you bought your home in the 1980s for $100,000, and you're a senior and you now want to move and transfer that tax base of $100,000 to your new home, as is allowed under Prop 19. So there's a couple different tests. I may need to call on Robert Izazaki to help me on this one. He's my expert. But we will look at your assessed value is $100,000. We also need to know what the market value is. So let's say that $100,000 home is now valued when you sell it for $1 million. So you're going to move to another county and buy another home. So if you buy another home that's worth $1 million, you can transfer your tax base and there'll be no change in your assessment. But if you transfer that to a home which is more than $1 million, there will be a change in assessment. The first $1 million, simply put, the first $1 million will be inherited from or will be transferred from the home that you're selling, the $100,000 tax base home, and that value over $1 million will be then assessed at market rate. One of the challenges that that was in this story in today's LA Times, that if you were to engage in that transaction right now to transfer your $100,000 tax base to $1 million home that you're buying in another county, you're going to get a supplemental tax bill based upon $1 million assessment, so $10,000, and you've only been paying $1,000. The problem was Prop 19 was so poorly written, and it's taken us so long to implement it. These bills are going out before we are ready to process them. So you'll get all that money back eventually, but you're going to have to pay that higher amount of taxes in the short term because there is no legal mechanism for us to stop that.
Just one more question. What about if you go into, let's say, $1 million home that's your value of your house? Now, if you're going to get something for $500,000, okay, you're going to have a lower.
Yeah.
But you can also, can you purchase two property in order to?
No, it's one residence for another residence. You can only apply it to the place where you live.
Thank you.
Surely.
Thank you. And I have a question from Mena Martinez. She's asking, how can I update my address on public records? It still has the previous owner's information.
Did you transfer that property recently in the last number of months? If it's just been done recently, I would just wait a little bit longer. It may just take a while for it to get into the system. However, if you need to update your records, Aldo will put into the chat a link to update your property records. But Robert, let me ask Robert Izazaki. I mean, I think that if the wrong name is on the property, it's probably a result in delay in entering the data. But it's very rare that we don't have the property owner of record on our database.
That's correct. So if the prior owner's name is still showing up on the tax bills or property tax statements, it's likely that we haven't processed the transfer by which the new property owner acquired the property. In some cases, especially right now, if there was a Prop 19 base year value transfer claim that was filed, we're trying to hold off on processing those transfers before we're able to review their request for a base year value transfer, so that when we do update our ownership records, it's with the correct tax base that's been transferred over and not market value. So it's our hope that we're not penalizing the new property owner by not reviewing their claim before we transfer the ownership in our records.
Okay. And I think the question that Mena Martinez had is to change the address, not the name, she said. So I don't know if it was answered already.
So I just inserted the link to change mailing address. That's found on our homepage on the website.
Okay. And then I have another question from Alice Young. She's asking is property reassessed each time a homeowner refinances?
No, we do not. A refinance does not trigger a reassessment unless, here's where a lot of people get reassessed during a refinance. It's not the refinance that causes the reassessment, but a lot of people, when they reassess it, may add or delete somebody's name from the deed. That is a reassessable event. So anytime you add somebody's name to a deed or delete a name from a deed, that is a change in ownership, which mandates that we reassess it. There are some exclusions from that. So if it's a husband and wife who get a divorce and there's a change, that is excluded. However, you have to tell us. You can't just do it. If you don't tell us that there was a family relationship that's causing that change, we don't have any ability to know that, and our system will just read it as a change in ownership.
If it's from an individual to a trust, we need to explain that too?
Yes. So a trust is, the simple way to explain a trust. A trust is not an entity. A trust doesn't do things for you. It's just a set of instructions as to how property is to be disposed. So a few things, a common thing that gets people in trouble with trusts is when the trustor dies, the heirs or the estate are required by law to file the change in ownership, death of real property owner form with our office within 150 days. And if they're inheriting property, if the children or grandchildren inheriting the property, they have to file the Prop 19. The trust doesn't do those things. Those are not automatic. If property is in a trust, you still have all the same obligations administratively with the property as though the property was not in trust.
But if I own the property on my name and I created a trust because I had a daughter, for example, and I want to change from my natural name to the trust, does that create a reassessment?
Robert is my trust expert.
Sure. So generally, no. Of course, we do have to review a copy of the trust. So when after the deed has been recorded, in the preliminary change in ownership report, you would indicate that it was a transfer from an individual to their revocable living trust.
Right.
Based on that, we would send out a request for a copy of your trust. So you'd want to be on lookout for a correspondence from the assessor's office requesting that, and be sure to send that in as quickly as possible to the reviewer so that we can take a look and make sure that it is or is not a reassessable event.
Robert, while you're on it, can you talk about the same sort of transfer from a family to from a deed to a LLC?
Sure. So that's another common situation. Homeowners sometimes are told that they should put their property, whether it be their home or commercial property or something like that, into an LLC for asset protection purposes or liability protection purposes. Now, the default rule for transfers between an individual or individuals and a legal entity, whether that be a corporation, an LLC, limited partnership, we all treat those the same, is those are reassessable events. There is a fairly large exclusion that is applicable in many cases, though. It's called the proportional ownership interest transfer. And basically that says if the same individuals that own the property outside of the LLC transfer it to the LLC and hold the same interest afterwards, we won't reassess that. So
Great.
say for example, you've got Jack and Jill, they own a piece of property as Jack and Jill as joint tenants. They decide that they want to hold it in their LLC so that for asset liability protection purposes. They deed the property from Jack and Jill's joint tenants 50-50 to the LLC. What we would expect to see if an exclusion is applied for is that the two LLC members are Jack and Jill 50-50. So generally, again, when you submit that deed transferring the property to the legal entity, you'll want to check that box that there's a proportional ownership interest transfer. We'll send out a request for documents. Usually it's the formation documents for the legal entity. You can send those in again. We'll review it, and at that time, we'll determine whether or not the property has to be reassessed or not.
Great. Thank you so much, Robert. That was great information. Does anybody else have a question on the chat that would like to come up? Or did we address everybody? Okay, I have Gina. Gina, do you want to unmute? Gina, are you there? Do you want to unmute to ask your question? There you are. Can you unmute? Okay.
She's unmuted, but for some reason we can't hear you, Gina. You want to type your question in the chat? Oh, okay. You're unmuted, but for some reason we can't hear you. Type your question in the chat, and I guess Mary, we'll see your face, but Mary will ask it on your behalf. How's that?
I think her question was up here. And this will be the last question because the assessor has to go and attend his business after this. And Gina, I don't see your question here.
You said in case of a Prop 19 change of tax base. I don't know what the, how long would someone be okay before the risk of repossession if the supplemental taxes were not paid in the case of Prop 19 change of tax bases?
I don't think there's any risk at all. We will get to the process. We will be able to process that application long before the anything in terms of repossession with the tax collector comes into effect. We have we're sitting at about 6,000 applications for Prop 19 that we're just beginning to process. We anticipate that we will complete the bulk of them by the end of June this fiscal year for the 2021-2022 fiscal year, and we'll any Prop 19 applications that are submitted from January 1st of this year, we'll begin to process those in August. So we're playing catch up, but you know, for your home to be repossessed, that usually is several years. And keep in mind that you have to pay these supplemental taxes. You will be made whole. You'll get your taxes back. You'll get interest. Penalties will be canceled. You'll be made whole. Might even come out a little ahead.
Thank you. And we're going to wrap it up here because the assessor has to go to another meeting. We thank you so very much. If there's any additional questions, we will try to get them from the chat, and then we'll try to answer them for you and send them to somebody that can give us a correct answer. Thank you so much, Assessor.
Thank you so much. We're always happy to come. Invite us back. We're always happy to share information. And you have all of my information in the chat. Keep in touch if I have any more questions.
Thank you. Back to you, Cindy.
Great. Thank you very much, Mary. And thanks so much again, Assessor Prang. It's always a pleasure to hear you. Thank you for your friendship, and definitely great to serve on your advisory as well. So thank you so very much.